If you guys are looking for some easy dinner ideas that you can make with the ingredients in your pantry, then you are in the right place today. Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. So today, yes, I'm going to be sharing 5 dinner recipes with you that are very simple and you probably have almost all of the ingredients in your house already. We're going to be cooking 5 recipes from the Essential Pantry Cookbook. I'll link this book down below. Each of these are really family friendly and delicious and simple, not complicated. So I'm excited to share these recipes with you. I'm also excited because Misen is sponsoring today's video. So thank you to them. You guys know that I have been working with them for probably almost a year here on my channel, and I've been featuring their knives, their nonstick skillet, but today I'm going to be sharing their stainless skillet, which is an awesome tool to add to your kitchen. So the skillet I'm going to be featuring today is their stainless skillet, which is really thick and allows for even heat distribution. The reason I really like this skillet is because it can go from stovetop to oven. It's actually oven safe up to 500 degrees. So you can get a really good sear on proteins if you're making steak or fish or chicken breast, and you can even transfer that right to the oven to finish cooking. It's also great for making pan sauces if you are searing proteins and you want to deglaze your pan with wine or something like that. It's great for that as well because you can really get those brown bits up from the bottom of the pan to season your sauce. I have been recommending Misen products without reservation because they are just so high quality, and I personally have been using them for months and months, probably like I said almost a year here in my kitchen, and they hold up fantastic. They use the same materials as other premium brands but are less than half the price. So I'll be talking later specifically about how I used this skillet to make some salmon burgers, but they are offering my viewers a discount. You can get 20% off your first order on the Misen website. I'll have a link in the description box below, and you can use promo code JEN to get 20% off. So without further ado, let's get into the recipes. Okay, so the next pantry recipe I'm going to share with you out of the cookbook is the slow cooker creamy chicken chili, and this is honestly one of my favorite recipes in the book, so if you haven't tried it, definitely do so. So for this recipe, you'll need some chicken breasts. I just have 2 chicken breasts in the bottom of my slow cooker, and these are mostly thawed. They might be still a little bit frozen in the middle, but that's fine. They'll cook as the chili cooks. And then you'll need 1 can of pinto beans, 1 can of petite diced tomatoes, a can of corn, salt and pepper of course, and then cumin, dill weed, and chili powder. I'm also going to use some garlic paste, some sriracha, and then this is chicken stock or chicken broth. All the recipes in the cookbook call for vegetable broth or stock, but that was just because we wanted to make more of the recipes vegetarian. So for this particular recipe, you can use either chicken broth or vegetable broth, and I'm using chicken. I just have some of that chicken base. It's in my refrigerator. I just reconstituted it with some warm water. Okay, so I'm gonna squeeze in just about the equivalent of 2 cloves of garlic, and then I'll pour in the chicken broth. This recipe is really easy because you obviously just dump everything into the slow cooker, cook it, and then when it's done, we'll shred the chicken and put it back in. I'm gonna put in 1 teaspoon of hot sauce. Okay, so I'm gonna put in my 1 can of diced tomatoes. You do not need to drain those. 1 can of corn. You do not need to drain that. And then I did go ahead and drain off most of the liquid on the pinto beans. Okay, so just to make sure that all of this is combined, I'm gonna give it a little bit of a stir. And then I have all of my spices in this bowl, so I'm just gonna put those in, stir. This is a really easy freezer meal too, if you wanted to like combine everything in a Ziploc bag and then freeze it. Really good that way too. And then the last ingredient is just 1 block of cream cheese. You could use low fat or regular, and then obviously this is going to melt while it cooks, and that is what will give this chicken chili like the creamy texture. It's really good. So I'm gonna put the lid on, and then I'm gonna cook this on high for 4 hours. Alternatively, you could cook it on low for 8 to 10, but basically we're just gonna cook it until the chicken is cooked through and we can shred it easily. All right, so 4 hours are up, and the chicken is cooked. So at this point, all you need to do is remove the chicken from the slow cooker, and then we'll wait till that cools a little bit so we can shred it. And then I'm gonna get a whisk and combine the cream cheese with the rest of the mixture. So at first, this is probably gonna seem like it won't combine, but it will if you kind of sit here and whisk it a little bit. And then when I add the chicken back in, I'm also gonna add about a cup of shredded cheddar cheese. You could also use pepper jack, but that'll kind of help bring everything everything together too. And then at that point you can taste it. If you think it needs more salt or more spice, you can add whatever you think it needs. But this is really delicious and super easy. We normally eat it with like crushed up tortilla chips on top and cilantro, sour cream, extra cheese. You could also eat it with Fritos. It's really, really good. Okay, so you can see how easy this chicken is shredding, and you just kind of want to shred it up into bite-sized pieces. And two chicken breasts will really go a long way, especially in a dish like this. So it's a good way to stretch your protein also. I've also seen people shred their chicken with a stand mixer. I don't want to necessarily dirty mine just to do this, but if you had a large batch, you could definitely do that. All right, so I put the chicken back in there, and I'm gonna add, you can if you want, yeah. I'm gonna add about a cup of shredded cheddar cheese, and then I'm just gonna kind of stir this and let the cheese melt. So at this point, you can put this on keep warm. We're actually gonna give this to Adam's parents, so I'm gonna turn it off. That way it will cool a little bit so I can pack it up into some containers. So I thought I would share with you guys what this soup looks like when it's plated up. So I just usually top this with cheese and tortilla chips, or I'm using Fritos and some sour cream and cilantro. It's really, really good, so definitely try it. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be making the honey soy salmon burgers, and this is on page 89 of the cookbook. These are so easy and so tasty, and I always have the ingredients on hand because I always have salmon in my freezer. So the ingredients you'll need, and I'm going to cut this recipe in half because there's only 2 of us that really like salmon enough to eat these here. If we're gonna make the whole recipe, you'll want 1 pound of salmon, but I have about a half a pound that I've cubed up. I have some salt and pepper. I also have some garlic, some soy sauce. You also need some lime juice, an egg, and some panko breadcrumbs. And then this is the perfect recipe to use my Misen stainless skillet for, because with these soy honey salmon burgers, you're gonna get a really great crust on them. And a pan like this is great for something like that because it's a stainless steel skillet. You're going to be able to get that awesome sear on the meat that you wouldn't be able to get with, you know, a nonstick skillet or any other type of skillet. I have been cooking with this stainless steel pan for months and months now. I think probably almost 6 months, and I can honestly say that it's one of my favorite tools in the kitchen. If you guys want to get your own, you can check out the link in the description box below. You can get 20% off your first order. Check out the link and use promo code JEN for 20% off. Another great thing that this skillet is good for is if you are making steak and you want to go from stovetop to oven, you can do that with this pan because it is oven safe up to 500 degrees. So you can get that really good hot sear on your steak, you know, sear the outside of it and then slide it into the oven. So definitely recommend this. Again, there'll be a link down below. You can use code JEN to get 20% off. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put my salmon into the food processor. You do not necessarily have to have a food processor to make this recipe, but if you have one, I would recommend it. I didn't realize that was on. But basically, you just want to chop up the salmon just like that. Actually, I don't even think I'm gonna have to do it, but one more pulse maybe. Yeah. So, you know, you can chop up your salmon and it's not going to hold together quite as well, but you know, you can make it work. You can make anything work in the kitchen, right? But if you do have a food processor, obviously you just want to kind of grind it up so it's in a little bit of a paste. So since the recipe calls for 1 egg, to cut that in half, I just decided to use the egg white and not the yolk. And then I'm going to need about 1.5 cloves of garlic. And then in this measuring cup, I have 1 tablespoon of soy sauce and the juice of half a lime. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of salt. You don't need that much because this is obviously has soy sauce in it, and soy sauce is salty. And then just a tiny bit of cayenne. Oh, I guess that may have been more than a tiny bit. Whoops. And then I have 1/2 cup of panko breadcrumb. You can adjust the panko depending on how much fish that you have, and if you feel like, you know, it's a little bit wet and it needs more. But I'm just going to stir this together. When I make a mixture like this, I normally like to use a fork because I feel like it makes the dish lighter. You know, like I'm not overworking it so much. So I'm just going to get this combined. Okay, so I'm gonna put this over medium high heat, and then I'm gonna pour in
right here.
Yeah, about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then I have actually the salmon mixture in the fridge to chill a little bit.
Can I help with you, please?
I have it in the fridge to chill a little bit, and then we'll form it into patties. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so I have my salmon mixture here. I'm just gonna get these into the pan. It's gonna smoke and splatter just a little bit because I have it turned up, but that's what we want to get that good sear.
Ooh.
Okay, so we have our salmon burgers here. I'm gonna go ahead and flip these. You wanna cook them for about 4 minutes per side. To see that awesome crust on there. And they actually are holding together really, really well. I apologize because I have the exhaust fan on. This is a glaze that I made out of soy sauce and honey and a little bit of garlic. So we're just gonna kind of baste this over the burgers, and then we'll flip them and baste them when they're cooked through. All right, so here are our honey soy salmon burgers. You can see the beautiful crust that those got in that mise-en pan. So I'm just gonna let these rest for probably about 5 minutes, and then I'll show you how I like to serve these. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of ways that you could eat this salmon burger. You could put it on a bun, you could eat it on rice. Personally, I like to have it on like a bed of greens, and then I just made a little bit of sriracha mayo, which is just like a couple tablespoons of mayo with a couple squirts of sriracha. Mix it together to your taste, and the combination of that with the salmon burger kind of reminds me of sushi, you know, when they put the spicy mayo on the sushi, and it's really good. So definitely try this recipe. Like I said, if you have salmon, you probably have all of the other ingredients too, and it's a nice twist on just your standard like baked or broiled salmon. So definitely give it a try, and don't forget to check out the link for mise-en below so you guys can get 20% off that stainless skillet. Okay, so tonight for dinner we're going to be making the shrimp scampi recipe on page 83, and then to go along with that I'm also going to make a pasta Alfredo. My kids are kind of so-so on shrimp scampi. They will eat a little bit of it, but I know they like Alfredo sauce, so I'm going to make this on the side, and then I'm going to either do a veggie or a salad, and I'm going to heat up some bread as well. Okay, so here are the ingredients that you'll need for the shrimp scampi. I always keep shrimp in the freezer. That's actually one of the ingredients in the Pantry Cookbook. If you want more information about how the cookbook is laid out, I have a video all about that. I can link it down below. But shrimp is an item that is super easy and quick to thaw out, and it's very quick cooking. So I have about 1.5 pounds of shrimp that I have basically just thawed out and rinsed, and I have it drying on a paper towel. I have a cup of vegetable broth. I've used this Better Than Bouillon vegetable base and just reconstituted it in some very hot water. All of the recipes in the cookbook can be used with either chicken or vegetable broth. The reason why they are all written with vegetable broth is so that there are more vegetarian dishes in the cookbook. However, if you want to substitute chicken broth, you could totally do that as well. I'm going to be combining that with some rice wine vinegar, and the combination of this is going to be a substitute for wine. I have some olive oil, some butter. I have some parsley. This is actually an extra, and that is not in the cookbook. However, if you have some fresh parsley, you can sprinkle on top. It's really delicious. If you don't have it, no big deal. I have 4 cloves of garlic, some grated Parmesan cheese. You need a 1/4 cup of this, a little bit in the bottom of there, so I'm going to go ahead and use that, and some salt and pepper. And then for the side, I'm going to use some penne just because that's what I have in my pantry. You can use any type of pasta, and then I just have a pot of water coming to a boil back there. So for the Alfredo sauce, traditional Alfredo sauce uses heavy cream and butter and Parmesan cheese, but I am actually going to use regular milk and then just half a package of cream cheese and then a little bit of butter. So I have half a stick of butter in here melted. I'm going to put in the equivalent of 2 cloves of garlic. Put in less or more depending on how garlicky you want your Alfredo sauce. I'm just going to stir this around in the butter, kind of give it a chance to through a little bit, and then I will add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Again, not a traditional Alfredo. Alfredo recipe, but I was trying to keep it with the spirit of pantry cooking, and heavy cream is not one of those things that I always keep on hand, and so I wanted this to be obviously really accessible. And then we're gonna add half a teaspoon of salt, and you can obviously taste it at the end and add more if you like. I'm gonna let this cook for just about 30 seconds. Okay, so I have 4 ounces of plain cream cheese in here. If you wanted to, you could definitely use low-fat cream cheese as well, but I am going to let this cook down. I did not, unfortunately, let my cream cheese soften before I put it in here. That would be ideal, but you just wanna make sure this doesn't burn. So I'm just gonna let this cook down and the cream cheese melt, and then I'll add my milk. Okay, so we're gonna add our milk. I'm just adding 2 cups of whole milk. You can use whatever you have on hand. I tested all of the recipes in the cookbook with whole milk, so I think that's what it calls for, but obviously you can substitute. You might have a thinner sauce or something like that, but you may be able to add a little bit more flour to thicken it up. So I'm just gonna whisk this over like medium-low heat, just to make sure that it doesn't get clumpy or stick to the bottom. And then I'm also going to add 1.5 cups of Parmesan cheese. I'm just using a mixture of whatever I have in my fridge, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper as well. All right, so here's my pasta. I'm gonna add penne, but again, you can use whatever type of pasta that you want. And I'll stir this around, and then I'll keep an eye on the Alfredo, and then we'll start the shrimp. That'll be the last thing we do since it cooks so quick. So I decided instead of a salad, I'm just gonna make this broccoli. I get this from Costco. It is actually really good and super convenient to make because you can steam it right in the bag. So normally I put this in for 5 minutes, and then I just toss it with some salt and pepper. And then if you guys have never seen these bread loaves from the Essential Baking Company, they're actually shelf stable and they're really good. All you have to do is take them out of the package and then bake them in like a 425-degree oven for 10 minutes. They come out super crusty and delicious, so I'm gonna throw this in the oven too. Okay, so the Alfredo sauce is done. It is delicious. Turned out super creamy and rich. I did add just a little bit of pepper to it. Depending on the type of cheese you use, you probably will have to adjust seasoning. I mean, you can use any type of Parmesan cheese you have on hand. You can even use like the shaky cheese in the green can, whatever. Just add salt or pepper. And also, if you use like a really strong Parmesan cheese, another suggestion I have is to add just a tiny sprinkle of sugar to it if you find that the Parmesan is too strong. It just depends on how you like it to taste. So I just have this on warm, and then I have my pasta here that is almost done cooking. And then in this pan over here, I have 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm just sauteing, using some garlic. And then I'm gonna add in my shrimp that I seasoned with just some salt and pepper while I make a mess. I need to clean my stove anyway, so pardon me. Okay, and then I'm gonna salt and pepper the other side as well. Okay, so I wish you guys could smell this because it smells delicious. The key to really good shrimp scampi is the garlic. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour in my combination of veggie broth and vinegar, and I'm just gonna let that simmer for maybe about a minute until it reduces a little bit, and then I'm gonna sprinkle some Parmesan cheese over the top, and it's all done. Oh my gosh, this is perfection. Definitely taste your food, you guys. So I tasted it and it's perfect. I tasted a little bit of the broth too. So with shrimp scampi, you can really kind of serve this in like a ramekin or a shallow bowl, and you can use some like crusty bread to like sop up the goodness, or you can serve it with pasta. Like I said, we're kind of gonna have it on the side of our Alfredo tonight, but yes, definitely delicious. Again, the parsley is optional, strongly encouraged. However, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. You can also just sprinkle some dried parsley on the top. It's actually just really kind of for looks too. Okay, so here is the pasta and the Alfredo sauce. Looks delicious. And then I put the bread in the bowl here with a towel over it. And then we've got our broccoli and then the shrimp scampi. So let me fix the plate and then I'll share that with you. All right, here's tonight's pantry meal exclusively from my cookbook. Shrimp scampi and Alfredo sauce, broccoli, bread. So tonight I am making the spaghetti pizza with pepperoni, which is on page 52 of the cookbook. So I've got some boiling water here and I did salt it, and I'm gonna add 8 ounces of spaghetti, which is half of a regular package, and then just boil this for about 8 to 10 minutes until it's just tender. So the spaghetti is done now, and I am going to drain it and then rinse it with cold water. We're gonna end up mixing the spaghetti with some milk and egg and Parmesan cheese cheese and some mozzarella. So make sure that you don't skip the step of rinsing it in cool water. You want it to be cool so that it doesn't, like, you know, scramble the egg when you mix it together. I've got a big bowl here and I've got 1 egg cracked in there. I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of Parmesan cheese. I think that Adam is organizing the mug cabinet, which is a necessity right now. Anyway, I think the cheese in the can works just fine for this application. Okay, I also put some mozzarella cheese in there, and I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of milk, or 1/3 cup milk. In this recipe, the spaghetti ends up kind of being like the crust for the pizza, so it's kind of unique in that way. And the only other thing I'm going to add is some salt, pepper, and some crushed garlic. Okay, so I mixed my cooked and cooled spaghetti in. I seasoned it with a little bit of salt and pepper, and I have a casserole dish over here that's just greased with cooking spray. So I'm going to spread the spaghetti layer out in there, and then I have this marinara sauce. This was in the freezer, so I just thawed it out in the refrigerator, and that's what we're going to use for topping it. Okay, I lied. I'm not going to put the sauce on yet. I have to cook the crust first. My brain is fried. Okay, so I'm going to put this into the oven. It's at 425, and I'm just going to bake that for about 15 minutes, and then we'll take it out and top it. Okay, so I took the spaghetti out and covered it with the marinara sauce, and then I'm just going to sprinkle some cheese on top. And then we'll top it with some pepperoni and it'll go back in the oven. So you can top this with anything that you want. I'm just gonna do pepperoni today, but you can put peppers or olives or onions or mushrooms or whatever you normally put on top of your pizza. And then you can also mix the marinara sauce with sausage too, or hamburger. There's a recipe riff in there for that. So this is gonna bake for, the recipe says 25 minutes. I'm gonna do 20 because my oven kind of runs hot sometimes, and then we'll check it. All right, so here's how it turned out. Really good. So a couple of tips for you if you make this recipe. Number one, like any casserole, you want to let it sit in the casserole dish for maybe about 5 to 10 minutes before you cut into it. Otherwise, it's kind of like lasagna, you know, it's hot and melty and it kind of runs all over the plate. Another thing I would say is that the recipe in the book calls to make the marinara sauce homemade, which there's a recipe in the book for that. Obviously you don't have to do that, but the marinara sauce I used was a little bit watery, so I would definitely make sure next time that I didn't do that. But if you use jarred marinara sauce, it will work just fine too. Anyway, it's delicious. To me, it tastes like a cross between pizza and lasagna and spaghetti, and it's much easier than lasagna, and it's a spaghetti dish that you can prep ahead of time too, which is really awesome. And then we're just having it with some green beans. All right, so in tonight's episode of Pantry Cooking, we are making the Cajun inspired beans and rice on page 63. So for this recipe, you'll need some garlic, some onion, some smoked beef sausage, or you can use turkey sausage or andouille or whatever you'd like. I had this in my freezer and wanted to get it used up, so I thawed it out. I'm gonna use this Niman Ranch andouille sausage. I do have a red bell pepper. It does say in here that you can add peppers or celery to your dish if you have it, and since I have a red pepper, I'm gonna go ahead and add that. You will need salt, pepper, olive oil, some paprika, cayenne, Italian seasoning, some vegetable stock. You could also use chicken stock, and then 2 cans of pinto beans. And then this recipe calls for cooked rice for serving. I actually have some frozen rice from Trader Joe's, and I'm trying to get my freezers cleaned out a little bit, so I'm just going to heat up some of that. And then I'm also going to make some biscuits on the side, because biscuits and beans and rice remind me of Popeyes, but we don't really have one around here, so this is the next best thing. So I'm gonna get these biscuits in the oven, then we'll get started on the beans. So I've got my big skillet out here. I'm just gonna put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here, get that heated up over about medium heat, and then I'm gonna chop up my onion and pepper. I've got my onion and my pepper in here, and I'm just going to saute this for about 4 minutes until it starts to soften. And then I have my andouille here. I'm going to slice this up and crush my garlic and get that into the pan. This is already fully cooked, so you don't need to worry about cooking it through. Okay, so we're getting some good brown bits on the bottom of the pan, so I'm going to go ahead and pour in the vegetable stock. And then I'm gonna measure out the spices and put those in. So salt, pepper, cayenne, Italian pepper, and paprika. And obviously you can adjust these according to your taste, more or less cayenne if you like it more or less spicy. I'm gonna start with a little bit less cayenne because the original recipe just called for regular beef sausage, and since I used andouille, it's a little bit more spicy. I've got my spices in here. I'm gonna add those. Then I drained the 2 cans of beans. So I'm gonna add these. I did not rinse them because the residual kind of liquid on the beans will help thicken this up a little bit. So now this is done. What I'm gonna do is cover it a little bit. I'm gonna cover it slightly so it's vented a little bit and simmer this for about 20 minutes until everything thickens up. All right, so I simmered this for almost 20 minutes. And as you can see, it thickened up. I gave it a taste. I did think it was a tad salty, which is probably okay because I'm serving it with plain rice, but I did add just a smidge of water to it, kind of tone it down a little bit. I think with this particular recipe, it really depends on the sausage you use. And obviously if the sausage you use is salty, you should cut back on the salt in the recipe, which is what I should have done, but it's fine. It's delicious. It's nice and spicy. So I'm gonna serve this on some rice with biscuits on the side. All right, just like Popeyes, only better. Cajun beans and rice with biscuits. Yum. All right, guys, so thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you got some inspiration for your own dinners at home. If you guys want to pick up one of those Misen stainless skillets, they are fabulous. I think it's a great kitchen tool to have in your arsenal. If you want to get 20% off, you can use promo code Jen and the link down below. I'll also have the cookbook linked that I cooked all of these recipes out of. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.